In a shocking turn of events, a racist cop has been sentenced to 3 years in prison for a terrifying confrontation in a supermarket. It all started as a regular day in a busy grocery store, but what unfolded next would leave the public stunned. In the midst of a routine shopping trip, this off-duty officer, fueled by prejudice, pulled out his gun and pointed it directly at an FBI agent. The situation could have escalated into something much worse, but what happened next changed everything. The cop's actions weren't just reckless, they were deeply rooted in bias. What made this incident even more disturbing was that the FBI agent was simply doing his job, completely unprovoked. As the tension in the store skyrocketed, what followed was a series of events that would unravel the officer's entire career and bring to light the serious issues of racism within law enforcement. But why did this officer feel entitled to act this way? What was the real story behind his decision to confront an FBI agent so aggressively? Stay tuned as we dive into the details of this high-stakes situation and the investigation that led to the officer's sentencing. The consequences of this moment would go far beyond the supermarket aisle. To understand how things spiraled so quickly, we need to go back to the officer's background. Officer Daniel Harris had been with the police department for over a decade. On the surface, he seemed like just another officer doing his job. But behind the badge, there were troubling signs that many chose to ignore. Harris had been known for his biased views and racist remarks over the years. Colleagues had whispered about his attitude, but nothing ever seemed to come of it. That day in the supermarket, it wasn't just a random encounter. Harris had been having a rough few months, his personal life was in turmoil, and he felt the pressure of his job weighing heavily on him. When he saw the FBI agent, a black man, browsing the aisles, something inside him snapped. Without any provocation, Harris pulled out his gun and pointed it at the agent. It wasn't just a threat, it was a manifestation of the deep-seated racism that had been brewing inside him for years. The FBI agent, luckily, stayed calm. He didn't draw his weapon, but instead tried to de-escalate the situation. But the tension in the store was palpable. People froze, unsure of what would happen next. As the standoff unfolded, something even darker loomed on the horizon. Harris' past was about to catch up with him in a way he never expected. As Harris stood there with his gun raised, the grocery store fell into a tense silence. The air was thick with fear. Customers ducked behind shelves, unsure if they were about to witness something horrifying. The FBI agent, who had already identified himself in the split second that Harris pulled the gun, remained remarkably composed. His experience in high-pressure situations kicked in, but his mind raced. Why was this cop doing this? Why now? From the other side of the store, a young woman named Emily had been quietly picking out produce when the scene unfolded before her eyes. She froze, heart pounding in her chest. She had always looked up to law enforcement officers as protectors, but this incident shattered everything she thought she knew. She knew the officer. He was a regular in the neighborhood, and his face had always been friendly. But now, standing there with a gun, he seemed like a different person entirely. Was this who he really was? As the confrontation escalated, Harris' grip tightened on his weapon. The FBI agent slowly moved his hands into plain sight, trying to keep the situation from spiraling out of control. But it wasn't just the agent's life at risk. The community, too, was caught in the crossfire. Emily and others in the store had no idea what would happen next. Would the officer fire the gun, or would the agent manage to talk him down? At that moment, Harris wasn't just facing an FBI agent. He was facing a reckoning with everything he had hidden beneath the surface. But the tension was far from over. The agent wasn't the only one with a story to tell. Secrets from Harris' past were about to be exposed, and they would reveal a far more dangerous side of the officer than anyone had ever imagined. The standoff continued, the seconds stretching into what felt like hours. Harris' eyes darted around the store, searching for an escape, but the reality was setting in. He had nowhere to go. The gun in his hand seemed heavier with every passing moment. His breath came in ragged bursts, and the weight of what he had done, pulling a weapon on an FBI agent in front of witnesses, began to sink in. But it wasn't just the immediate danger that rattled him. It was the fear that everything he had hidden for years was about to come to light. The tension reached its peak when, later that week, Dr. Bennett found himself face to face with Mrs. Carter again. It happened unexpectedly during a faculty meeting, a routine gathering that usually saw him standing at the front, taking charge as he always did. But this time, as he entered the room, he saw her standing quietly by the door, gathering the discarded coffee cups and papers. The sight of her caught him off guard, like a flash of lightning cutting through a stormy sky. He couldn't escape the feeling that this moment, this encounter, was where everything would either implode or be mended. As the meeting went on, Dr. Bennett couldn't focus. He could feel her presence lingering, her calm, unwavering demeanor quietly challenging him. The other faculty members talked around him, but all he could hear was the voice in his head screaming that he needed to do something. He needed to fix the damage he'd done. His grip on the table tightened as he finally stood up, interrupting the conversation. All eyes turned to him, and in that moment, Dr. Bennett knew it was now or never. "Mrs. Carter," he said, his voice surprisingly steady but full of underlying tension, "could I speak with you after the meeting? There's something I need to address." The room fell into an uncomfortable silence. No one expected this, least of all Mrs. Carter. She hesitated for a moment, looking at the professor with a mixture of curiosity and caution. But after a beat, she nodded, and the meeting continued with an air of uncertainty hanging over it. Afterwards, Dr. Bennett led her to an empty hallway, away from the prying eyes of the faculty. He felt the weight of the moment pressing down on him. This was it, the confrontation he had been avoiding. His reputation, his pride, everything was on the line. "I owe you an apology," he began, his voice quieter now, almost as if admitting defeat. "That day, I underestimated you, and I let my arrogance get in the way. It was wrong." For the first time in weeks, Mrs. Carter looked at him directly. Her expression was unreadable, and Dr. Bennett wondered if she would accept his apology or simply walk away. He had no idea what to expect, but he had to say it, to admit he had failed. "I don't need your apology, Dr. Bennett," Mrs. Carter replied, her voice calm but firm. "But I do appreciate you acknowledging it." For a moment, neither of them spoke. The silence between them was thick, but something had shifted. The power imbalance was no longer as clear-cut as it had once been. But just as Dr. Bennett thought the tension might finally dissipate, Mrs. Carter surprised him. "You think this is just about that math problem, don't you?" she asked, her voice a little softer now, but still carrying the weight of years of experience. Dr. Bennett blinked, taken aback. "What do you mean?"